Ways and Means, here we are, H 9:55. 3:10 on Thursday, April 9th. 6 days to tax day. We have mostly finished our language pending some edits from witnesses and final numbers. Even those final numbers will be placeholders because the implementation date on them is quite far out. And so we are going to end the day where perhaps we should have started a week ago. Which is the fundamental question of, which Representative Burkhart posed, of can the foundation formula we have laid out and will certainly modify next year work without forced mergers? Discuss amongst yourselves.
You mean, can we move the foundation formula up?
Oh, gosh, no. I think, yeah, I'll let you explain your question.
So my question is, last year we heard from the JFO a couple of different times that it would be potentially very detrimental to our education to apply a foundation formula in our current district structure. Because when you are taking an amount of money, a large amount of money that's following a child, and you are talking about districts that are potentially small or for various reasons, it makes their funding very unstable. And that was part of the reason that we were trying to marry up the change in governance at the same time as the change in funding system. Because if you have a bigger district, there's a little bit more flexibility. 5 children leaving or 5 children coming in doesn't have as big of an impact. And so I just got concerned yesterday when I don't know why it took so long for the penny to drop, but it finally did, that really what's in the language in the bill now, there is no contingency effectively for district mergers to happen at the same time as the foundation formula. So what we're talking about is potentially applying the foundation formula to our current district structure. And my concern there, I have a lot of concerns about it, but some of the biggest ones are for those smaller districts, as I said, that's going to make their funding very unstable. And I'm worried about them being able to even cover their fixed costs, let alone, the incremental costs of 1 or 2 more students, but really damaging opportunities for kids in those districts. I'm worried that if they want to merge with other districts, will other districts that maybe aren't as at risk want to merge with them? So that really has to be a two-sided, conversation. And so I worry about districts getting left out in the cold that are doing all the things we want them to do. They're raising their hand to say, yes, I want to consolidate with another district, but just being told no, in those study committees. And I know that there are things built in, the study committees have to say why they find it not advisable, and that, puts a little pressure on them to try to come together. But what I worry is that we are essentially using the foundation formula to force mergers. We're saying that we're not forcing mergers, but we are using it to basically put so much financial pressure on districts that they're going to find it impossible to operate without merging with someone. And I especially worry about the interim part where they're feeling that pressure and they have not yet been able to find a merger partner or been able to merge. And what happens in that interim period for the kids who are still in that district, who are losing opportunities? Does that cause families to move out of that district? Does it cause wealthier families to send their kids to private school, leaving, only kids who don't have the means to do that in those districts? And how long do those kids sort of lose out on opportunities before that district is essentially forcibly merged with another district? And so that's the concern that I think a lot of us have had that conversation, in the background. I just wanted to air it before we take a big vote tomorrow on what we're doing here and make sure that we have that discussion.
Representative Higley?
I think, Bridget, you've hit on the concern that the governor has and has had all along, as far as creating those districts that are somewhat equal with student population, right? 36,000 or whatever, where those larger district numbers would work out to be. And then including a foundation formula. So I think you've hit on how, in my opinion too, how difficult it's going to be to have 7 mandated CISAs with trying to create mergers within those CISAs that aren't necessarily going to happen. You know, they don't have to, it's not mandatory, voluntary. So again, that's what I find as well, as far as going forward with all this. I don't see the, is it all ending? If, if we don't have enough mergers to move the foundation formula forward realistically. Well, that's my concern as well.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up, and Mark, for your Representative Hickman, being formal here, for your comments. I'm finding not in the legislation we worked on per se, but what we got from Zoe Saunders, governor, there are a lot of backhanded ways of getting at things that many of us don't want to do, but maybe coerced into it. I'm being a little sarcastic, a little cynical today. But that's the way I've been seeing it for a while. Talk about it later.
And I don't know what the right answer is for the whole state. I know for my town, I hear nearly every weekend when I go home, Carolyn, keep choice for us. So Georgia hasn't had a high school for over 200 years. We haven't. They have either they have sent their children out of town for education beyond 8th grade, or where the kids haven't gotten it. And I know some places find this difficult to believe, but for years and years, parents have transported their kid back and forth to high school, wherever they choose for that child to go, they transport, or they arrange for overnight care. So some kids occasionally go to St. Johnsbury Academy or Kimball Union in New Hampshire, or a lot of kids go to South Burlington. In Burlington, those children come home every night. Rice High School is very popular. I think that it will continue to be popular. A lot of French Canadian Roman Catholic people in all of Franklin County. I don't know what the answer is. I am so sad that we have gotten to a point where our school costs are so high that people can't afford them. And so that's the breaking point, I guess, isn't it? When you get where you can't afford it, then you have to do something different. So I hope that this will work out for everyone, especially with kids. They're the future, aren't they?
Eddie?
I think that there is a lot of the points that Representative Burkhart brought up. I also share a lot of those concerns.
Can you speak a little louder?
Yes, of course. The points that Representative, I share a lot of the concerns, and I think that if the goal where we are, to my chagrin, leaving this in a voluntary place as far as mergers, and I think that there's a million ways that this thing could go sideways, which is why I don't like it very much. But if we're going to move forward with a system of voluntary mergers, there are so many class and culture obstacles with getting districts to a point where they're going to want to merge. I think it would be a lot easier and a lot fairer for the districts, for us as the state, to accept the responsibility and say, this is what the new districts are going to be. This is how we're going to do it, because that's our job to make the hard decisions and, point a path forward. But, my community desperately needs the foundation formula. There are a lot of communities that will benefit, and there will be some communities that don't benefit. And that's, part of the trade-off that we have to make every day in this building. And so I see that the nuclear option of having nobody do a voluntary merger, but we need that foundation formula piece at the end to make sure that when these study committees are doing their work, that they take seriously what the consequences will be if they decide to suggest, mergers. I think that the foundation formula implementation is really the only stick that we have left in this piece of legislation to try and get folks to voluntarily consolidate. And it's like an uncomfortable feeling. I don't like, it feels threatening in a way, and I don't like that. Which is why I think we, the state, should be making these decisions for the districts. But if we're not going to do that, there needs to be a way to move forward that's not the status quo, and I don't see another way in this bill to do that.
Well, I feel like I heard from Representative Burkhart is.
She's going to, thank you.
She's applying the Board of Education.
Oh.
That's the Board of Education.
It's a novel
I really like sending social to do it, but Bridget clearly needed that today.
Move along.
You better go save her.
I think she's got it.
running away from Ken.
Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you.
I'll give you a bad living
Or whisk.
When I listened to what Representative Burkhart said, and I thought, this foundation just passing this formula, it really does force mergers. It's going to just be an extremely stressful time for schools. And so one thing that absolutely, and this goes forward, one thing they absolutely are going to need is the numbers to show them what the numbers look like. And then when you were saying, if it's a small school and they lose 3 students,
Small district.
small district, it loses just 10 students. That's so much money. It's a teacher and educational assistant, whatever. So I wonder whether they'll say, oh my gosh, we're looking at the numbers now, we need a little bit more time, or we need more help, or we need more people come in and help us do this. Help us get to a merged state.
And I know that you and Teddy worked together during the break to send some language to John that made sure that the numbers regarding the foundation formula when JFO finishes their analysis will be available for districts as they're doing the merger work. And I think that's an important piece of the puzzle so that they understand sort of what's on the other end of this. Anything, Charlie?
Yeah, I like the foundation formula in a lot of ways, and we talked to our school districts about some of them. It's easier to manage to a number. But yeah, I recognize the concerns. I'm not sure what to think of it, honestly, right now. It's a good red flag.
So I think we have choices before us. I mean, I don't mean this like we're making the choice right now. It's just from my perspective, I think many people around this table think that mandating the mergers would be a more effective path. That is not an available option in front of us right now. And so then the choice that's in front of us is, do we continue on? We know that tax incentives don't work. I've heard testimony over the years that there's sort of a desire to more clearly connect governance decisions to spending decisions. Certainly the foundation formula does that. And so if a district was operating not at scale and they saw their foundation formula numbers, it would help, it would help really sort of manage to those numbers and see the reality of the situation, that the decisions that they had made, and some might make that and some not. Representative Odie, you said something about things being uncomfortable. I think things are really uncomfortable right now. I think they're uncomfortable for kids. I think they're uncomfortable for school boards trying to pass budgets. Budget in my area just failed. Interestingly, in my area last night, a district voted affirmatively to close a small school and voted down that budget, which is an unusual combination. I don't have the backstory to share, so which is nice because that information. But this seems like, to me, a really important, this is transformative, long-term work that we're doing. And I think we all have a desire to be able to go home to our constituents or talk to the media or tell the governor or whatever, like, yes, we have finished this work today. This is the plan. This is the next step. And it's like multi-year transformation. And so, last year we set a plan in place. We got significant feedback from the public about how they did not want to be sort of forced into these situations yet. And we are continuing to move the rest of the work forward because we know that a lot needs to change because the status quo is not okay. And I think next year we'll have more information and we'll have made more of these decisions because we'll have more of the pieces that we put in place in this bill. And then we'll be able to continue to refine the work to get clear on what the exact numbers are and what the impact might be and be able to tweak it from there as we go. But I can't in good conscience not do something significant this year. And I think just putting forward the voluntary mergers without the foundation formula on the other end of it is not setting a clear vision for what comes next. Chip. Or Woody, actually.
Well, I think we're all concerned with the cost of our schools. We're all getting older. We know that. Our population is.
Please speak up a little bit for everyone, not just for.
Speaking for yourself, so you can keep that perky.
I'm getting older.
And our population is older, fixed incomes. They can't afford, property taxes. We've all heard. I guess I'm concerned whether this is really going to help. And, by trade, I'm not an optimist. And I just have some reservations with all the costs that we're looking at, whether it be construction costs, or the cost of transformation. I have to wonder whether in the end, whether we'll succeed. And I do hope we do. I also have issues with my community. It's a rural community. With the transformation, are the students in my community going to be getting the same education that we're all paying for right now as someplace like, Woodstock or Burlington? It just, I have concerns like everybody does. And I don't think by doing forced mergers it's going to help us. And I think in the long run, schools will probably see what's facing them and will do it on their own without being forced to do it. Those are my thoughts.
So in the face of, can I just ask a clarifying
Sure.
question? In the face of voluntary mergers, which I see why they make sense, do you see the foundation formula as a way for the kids in your district to get the kinds of opportunities that are available to other kids in the state right now?
I hope so.
Okay.
I've been thinking about the whole package, and I was a doubting Thomas about the effectiveness of CISOs from a financial standpoint. But if, in fact, we're looking at efficiencies and also improved services to students across the state through this organization of 7 that can, if managed properly, really lower costs and improve those services. So I'm hopeful about that. I'm optimistic about that. The question I always have is what is the intersection of the foundation formula with those CISAs? And that gives it that scale that kind of insulates somebody from a few students moving out of a school district to make sure that doesn't negatively affect them. So I think we can leverage those CISAs once they're really up and running to achieve the kind of transformation we've been talking about. And it's really not that different, if you think about it, kind of, sort of, from what the governor asked for. I need fewer school districts. Well, they're not districts, they're CISAs. They're consolidating services and they're going to bring them to every school district, and so students can have more opportunities. I think that's pretty cool. And what we're doing with school construction in here, to me, not just for my community, is a great carrot. So hopefully we can invest in those new buildings. The thing about the liabilities, we were talking about this over lunch, you might not want to merge with a school that has a lot of debt, whereas you might not want to merge with another school that hasn't done anything to the building in 40 years and is falling apart. Both of them have liabilities. So it's not just that there's a debt, there's also depreciated debt. So, it's hopefully, I'm hopeful that we can actually make this go through and lower our costs, improve our education, and have a more predictable system over the long
Sure. So again, I know we're a separate body from the other body. But I think it's important. I mean, I hate to see us do the amount of work that we're doing and, having a strike all amendment, when it gets over to the Senate and be right back here again, passion over, what the huge difference is. And then again, you got the governor pretty firm with what he's looking for. What does that mean? Does that mean we're gonna be here until end of June or whatever? So.
Don't say it, Mark.
I'm sorry?
Don't say it.
Well, I know, well, I already said I have a construction season coming up.
We have a job.
But anyway, that's, again, just to throw that out there. We're the house and we need to do what we need to do, I guess. But it's still, I think it's too yanked up because again, I'm hearing that things could change when it goes to the Senate in a big way.
I mean, I think things will definitely, everything changes when it gets to the Senate, right? And particularly education policy. I do know that the work that's happened in the Senate thus far on this issue has been really focused on the shape of voluntary mergers. They have not been talking about mandatory mergers. They've been talking about voluntary mergers, and the shape of the districts are very different. But they have not done, those committees have not done work on really all that is in our language at all. And so it does feel like whether they take it or leave it, we are offering a contribution that will at least be taken into account. And yes, of course, I'm sure the Committee of Conference will be a challenge again this year with the third party at the table as well. One thing I just want to flag that you said, Charlie, as well, is the CISAs as a path to cost savings is huge. And I think one of the pieces that we've talked a little bit about before and haven't been able, we can't see the savings in things like this in the same way with CISAs as they exist now with Act 46 mergers, because those resources are rolled back into the district where it started, rather than having those savings be sort of spread more broadly around the state. And I think one of the things that's interesting about connecting the CISAs to the foundation formula is it'll create more equitable opportunities and sort of stabilization for taxpayers in a way that wouldn't happen if we just did CISAs and the current finance system. For whatever that's worth. Yeah, Jim.
A couple of things. One is, for starters, Teddy, I disagree completely that we should have forced mergers, that this body should decide boundaries. I think we would do so absolutely at our peril. Pay for it for as long as we could possibly pay for it. but that said, I have considerable faith in CSIS, in voluntary, trying to figure it out as best we can. And I think we need local people, local regional people at the table when those decisions are negotiated and work their way through. I think, barring that, again, we go forward as at our peril. And I would say, we can no longer tread water. We'll all drown. We're in the process of drowning right now anyway. And sink or swim is kind of trite, but we have to work our way forward. I will be lucky if I come back next year. My voters are gonna be in considerable stress. Maybe, for old time's sake, they'll send me back for one more time so we can finish our work here. Because there'll be more work to do. We know, this is gonna be done in May or whatever it is. When someone I was talking to many years ago said our obligations is to be informed and fair. I mean, that's basically the way I try to do my job, be informed and fair. And as we all recognize here, there are so many moving parts. I was talking to someone in the cafeteria this morning about the aspect that we get locked into the language in one provision or something, and we try to negotiate our way out of that. This is Gauss's ring again, there's these things over here on the side, but wait, stop. And
I appreciate that Rebecca consistently brings us to sort of not forget about the things on the outer ring.
yeah, and so, I mean, I don't have an endpoint to this comment, except that, this is difficult stuff, and I, Pollyanna here, I appreciate everybody in this committee, how hard we're working together to try to figure out an answer. We play our different roles here on different bills, depending on the order of the day, kind of stuff. But, as I implied back a little while ago, there are a lot of things that I don't like. But we can't tread water, and so we're basically obligated to pick our best shot and see, well, we think this will work better than the other things that we've talked about. I mean, I'm not really enthusiastic. I'm certainly not enthusiastic about the foundation formula, which is based on region by region. What if you change the region's boundaries? Would you get a different result for the amount?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's based on the students in that region.
I understand, but there are different ways to construct the model and get a little bit different result between. It's not our job right here to talk about that, but or at least not today. We hear, anyway, I'm going on. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff.
A lot of discussion about the voluntary mergers. As Mark pointed out, but from the other body, that the first thing they're offering is a 2-year soft landing with voluntary mergers. So, sorry, Teddy. I mean, that's.
What does that mean? I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, I don't know what
Soft
voluntary
landing.
stuff means.
What, Charlie?
I'm not sure what that
That
means.
was how it was
The soft landing.
first offered up as a soft landing, 2 years of voluntary merger before
Before the axe comes down.
yeah.
Oh,
The floor amendment for a soft amendment, which will get rejected, but I feel an obligation to pay him to make a statement on behalf of my district. So we'll get to that another day.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, this is anybody, but one thing about Act 6068 is, as we ask schools to do more, when they have to come figure out how they're gonna pay for it, they get to set their budgets, the voters vote, and then we need to raise the money so that they can do all the things, that it asks them to do, and quality standards asks them to do, and that we ask them to do. The federal government asks them to do. All the good ideas that come from It's outside of their ability to control. And so, but under Act 6068, we do fund what they're doing. Whether we think that they're too big or small or whatever, they should have. I like what Charlie said, I like to be positive and think let's keep it. But we cannot underfund this formula.
Yeah.
Like, period. And I almost want to cry and say, we will. But I mean, so I would have to say, maybe we need in here to make me feel happy, something that said, for every law that is passed at the state or federal level, we have to fully fund the additional to school districts. Because we have the foundation, equal opportunity payment, we have a way that that's going to increase with inflation. How the way that ends up being, but the additional mandates have to be fully funded.
Carol, I want to respond to what you said about Act 60, because I think Act 60 is, and I know that not everyone thinks this, and certainly I have constituents who still wish it had never passed in the first place, and I'm sure everyone here does. But as it was conceived, I think it is a beautiful thing. I think it's an incredible opportunity for equity. I think it's an incredible opportunity for local control. I think it's so incredible that the folks who put it together managed to marry those two things as elegantly as they did. And it is absolutely not working. And so like that's, and like, I think it worked better than the law that was before it for a long time. And it's just like fundamentally not working anymore. And I think that's really sad because I think there's so much in it that has, you know, like really lives up to our values here in Vermont. And I think this is sort of the next opportunity to take the sort of elegance of the statewide grand list and bring it to the next level of like a consistent statewide grand list, a grand list where folks pay more according to, you know, use of the land and ability to, like really how our tax code has, our property tax code has evolved, and make sure that kids, no matter how those voters in that district feel about taxes, still get an opportunity to learn. And that, like, that feels to me like the next evolved stage. I am not, it's terrifying. I do not know if this is going to work, and I'm glad. Sometimes I'm glad that every year we get to come and tinker and do the next step. And some years I'm like, don't really trust the next tinkerer. And it's, you know, I think that's why some people stay here for a very long time, is because you don't trust the next year's tinkerer and you want to hang out, protect against it. Right? But I think we have to do, and it feels really uncomfortable to move forward with the next step that's not complete, but there's no way to complete this in a single year. That is just the nature of the scale of the work we're doing right now. Yeah, Teddy.
Two things. One is, per what you just said, Madam Chair, about the inherent good that was behind the design of Act 60. You know, I was actually talking with Representative Kimball about this earlier, of the pre-Act 60 funding formula was in place for a little bit over 30 years. We're about 30 years past Act 60. And I think, you know, much like our state and federal constitutions, the world changes, and we have to change the systems of government and systems of funding to reflect those changes. And so, you know, wide scale, large systemic change is a good and necessary part of what government is supposed to do. And we should have fierce debate and arguments about what that should look like. And then the second thing on the merger piece is, I don't think that the state should be deciding what the merger should be, because I think that we have some magical wisdom that no one else has, or that we are, you know, that we have the silver bullet. My worry with the voluntary merger system is that we're passing these really hard decisions from the resourced apparatus of state government to less resourced school boards, administrators, and communities. And we're saying, No, we want mergers. We want consolidation, but we don't want to be the ones to make the hard decisions. You guys have to do it. That's my problem with the voluntary merger system. Not that I think that, I or any one person have all the answers. It's part of our jobs to make really hard decisions, sometimes unpopular decisions for the betterment of our communities and of our state. And I worry that the voluntary merger system laid out in 955, with all due respect to the House Education Committee, passes the buck on that responsibility because we're afraid of what people might say about it. And there are pros and cons to mergers, mandatory or otherwise. But that's where my frustration comes from, not because I think I or anyone else has all the answers and what the mergers should or should not be and what districts should or should not be. I just think we're kind of throwing a grenade into some of our communities across the state. And we don't know what's going to come of that, but we're saying, this is what we're doing. Now you guys figure out how to do it. And that does not feel comfortable.
And in the absence of forced mergers, do you think that the next best thing is still to move forward with the foundation formula?
Yes.
Representative Runningen, I think you wanted to say something a minute ago.
I wanted to say the other half of what Teddy was talking about, and that's that the world is changing. And, downstairs, the guys from Efficiency Vermont have been there all day. One of those men.
Dryer balls.
Yeah, they, one of those men is my constituent. And I was talking with him, and his wife is just the sweetest lady you would ever meet. Dear and small, and she's a third grade teacher. And she came home the other day with a huge bruise on the front of her leg because a child had kicked her in the shin. And she didn't report it, she didn't do anything, she just continued on with her day. I know my grandchildren come home, my daughter tells me, and ask her what different 4-letter words mean. These are words they never hear anyone say, and except at school. And I mean, the world is changing. I don't know what to do about that. I feel a lot of times like society is falling apart. Kids don't get adequate parenting at home, or do they even go to church? I was going to say or at church, but I think most don't go. So what? I don't know. So what? But
I certainly don't go.
you turned out all right. What I'm saying is the world is falling apart. It's bits and pieces, and how can we pick this up?
Certainly, we're not going to do it all in this room in this bill. And I do think that too many hopes have been pinned on a single piece of legislation. By all of us, Yeah, Carol.
I just listened to the really thoughtful discussions we've had, and they're really coming together on so many things that this legislative body does. I keep track on the floor. Almost every bill that passes out of committee is unanimous. Pay attention to it. And almost everything that we vote on the floor is a unanimous vote. Now, don't start just saying no, just to be funny, but
Somebody gets up and yells, point of order. I'm scared.
But truly, I also hope here is that instead of leaving this body hyped and growing, well, they're not doing this, he's not doing that at each other. I think Vermonters would be so happy to hear positive stuff about, well, I can understand where you're coming from. You started out saying we needed this. Couldn't quite get that because people here are very close. Representatives we only represent 4,000, or in a double district, 8,000 people. It's very close people. Yeah. And so we're reacting to what they're telling us. And so this might just be as fast as we can go. And as we see the discomfort and, we may have to pour some resources toward the study committees and CISAs to, so that they have more help getting where they need to go. And so, I just hope we could speak as positively and kindly outside this building that would really reflect what's going on inside this building, which is a lot of positive stuff. I also wonder if when we go over to the Senate, the new go, Madam Chair, with the bill, finished with it. Whatever, it turns out to be, that maybe we should all on this committee go and sit around. Oh, really, I was thinking, because rooms are very small, Shannon, they're small. Well, that note. No, I'm serious, because all this stuff that's all interrelated, timelines and everything else, rather than just slashing through it, is to just say, well, why don't we work with you so you really get how this thing is put together, and don't slash it. Just say, okay, we're gonna work from this document. And if you want to change a phrase here, take out a paragraph, but don't
Please add a comma. We don't have enough commas.
do this. Don't just slash it. It's
The more that's.
I've heard your name brought up for conference committee clarification.
Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
You made a comment about underfunding education. I'd like to know, has the state underfunded our educational system through the years? And if the answer is yes, then maybe we all should be, I'm gonna get killed for this. Maybe we all should be paying more for our education system, whether it be property taxes or some other manner.
So I guess so before the foundation.
Republican Party's coming for.
Before- I appreciate that. So
The other side.
I think we've all switched sides multiple, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I've switched sides multiple times in the last year. Before Act 60, that's why the Brigham decision happened, because we are significantly underfunding schools in certain areas of the state. And I think there's a huge amount of evidence that right now we are significantly underfunding schools in some areas of the state. Slate Valley and Barry being two very specific ones. And I think that's one of sort of the essential reasons why we're here.
What I was meaning also is when we ask the education fund to take on what in other states is coming from the general fund, like let's say it's mental health services, okay, then it looks like education spending is out of control. But what we're doing is we're just asking that fund to do more and more and more. And because we're asking our schools to do more and more, and going to what you were talking about, kids who come in who are not in good shape, they need help.
My hope with the way we structured the foundation formula and the good work we did last year and the good work we're doing this year is that by keeping supplemental district spending at a very low ratio and the way it's raised, we are actually keeping the system that we're setting up from getting more and more and more inequitable, as any education funding system sort of tends to do across time. And we're creating more of an incentive for the legislators who represent this very small number of people to protect the sum in the foundation formula from too much messing with, as we are wont to do. This seems like a good spot to stop for the day. Thank you, everyone. We're back here tomorrow at 9. As far as I understand it, the language that we're going to look at tomorrow is going to have some tiny tweaks from today, but we are done making substantive And